Hello again, everyone. Deflect here, Firm but Fair Gaming. Wanted to bring you a intro to tanking, how to get started, what to do, what will help, and things like that. So this will be a full guide on different parts of tanking, how to get in, the Weakauras, what to fundamentally start with, and basically a just general intro on how to become a tank and how to, become okay at tanking to start with. You can then perfect your craft later on, and that will be done through guide videos and everything like that. But the very first thing you need to do, very first thing, is decide what tank to play. That's it. Just what one do you want to start on? Odds are you're probably going to have some alts, and odds are you're going to actually progress from the first one you start. But just pick a tank. Pick a tank you want to play. Pick a tank you want to try. Now, there are many different ways you can do this. You can actually do it by just grabbing any tank, and I'll show you later my Demon Hunter, because my Demon Hunter is my favorite so far. I really enjoy the Demon Hunter, but I'll get into a few of the other ones. And picking a tank comes down to how you want to play. There's many ways to decide that. You can go with, do you want to be mobile? Do you want to be tanky? Do you want to pick the meta? Do you want to do many different things? So I think I have a couple here. You can also go into class trials. So class trials are a great way to test out a character. Test out if you like the kind of movement, the kind of speed, the buttons, everything like that on a tank. So class trials are a great way to check it out. You can see going into a class trial, you have access to a lot of the buttons. You have access to, you'd have to set them all up. I don't have them all set up by any means, but you'll be able to put on buttons, test it out versus packs. Do you want to be like a high CC like a druid? Do you want to have mobility like a druid? Do you want to change? There's many different things you can do. You can set it up many different ways, but a class trial gives you a good example of the abilities you have. So it's a great way to start, a great way to test it out, great way to just engage some enemies and judge it by that. So once you pick your tank, you'll decide, maybe I want to be a druid, I want to be a bear, I want to go in, thrash is going to be my big thing, I want to be able to change a cat form when I'm in dungeons for some more speed and mount for some other ones. Maybe you want a monk. You think monk's going to be fun, you want to play monk. Maybe a demon hunter, you want to be able to leap away. Or maybe you want to be, a blood DK and do crazy high healing on the damage meters. Those are all possibilities, and that'll come down to your playstyle and how you want to do it. But after you've picked your tank, you want to get in, you want to start tanking. Well, there's a few things you need to know. The tanks are mainly, people look at the tank and what they want is someone to hold aggro and someone to be able to not die. So, you want to be able to pull a pack. I guess I'm a little overpowered for these. Pull a pack and not die. So, you want to be able to stay alive, be able to have your DPS, and not have to worry about grabbing aggro off you. That's your kind of job. Not die, hold aggro.
I must get closer.
And that's the biggest key to a tank. And now in Mythic Plus, they'll want you to know the route. So I'll get into a bunch of different things you'll need to know about the route later on, because that'll come with knowing like proper routes, knowing percentages, and different things that will help you with that. But I'll get into that later. So the biggest things are going to be with your tank, knowing your class, knowing your defensive. So I'm on a druid bear right now. I have a few defensives. I have Berserk. It gets me into a great defensive. I have Frenzied Regen, which is a health regen. I have Iron Fur for defensive, and I have Survival Instinct and Barkskin. And knowing when to use those, knowing a big ability that's really going to take some damage off you, will just come by doing dungeons. You won't know it right at the start, but you will later on. And just getting to know the dungeon will help you know that, hey, this pack hits really hard. I'm going to have to use Berserk on this pack. Or I'm going to have to use Barkskin and Iron Fur with some regens on this pack. And that just comes from general dungeon knowledge, and you acquire that just through playing. So that can come in time. But knowing your defensives and what they do, that's a key that you should start out with. The biggest thing after defensives is kick. In Mythic Plus, dungeons are won and lost on your kicks. You'll have in-cap roar for a druid, and skull bash are your interrupts. This is an AoE one. This is your single target. And all of the tanks will have these. You know, demon hunters have sigils. They also have disrupt. Monks have lag sweep. And I forget their other kick is called. And, you know, DKs can grip in, mass grip, and I forget their other kick. But a lot of them have different variations. They have asphyxia too for Death Knights as well. So knowing your kicks, knowing your defensives, that's a key start to learning any of your class. Knowing your class is the best way to start tanking. And you can do this by just going into... Try, if you're not geared, go to a lower level. Go to a level like 30 area and try pulling packs. If you are geared and you have decent gear, go to an M0 and just go in. Set it to heroic if you need to. Set it to normal if you need to. But go into a dungeon and set it to those things, and you can go in and practice pulling mobs, because pulling mobs is the best way to know what they do. Now, we're going to go in and say, you know what defensives to you, like, you know your defensives. You have X amount of defensives. You know your interrupts. Those are the big things. All right, so one of the biggest things and the biggest mistakes I see from tank players is, one, jumping into packs with no mitigation, and two, is not pulling correctly. So there's a couple things you want to know when pulling. These are all going to be pretty much melee enemies, but there are going to be some range ones. You kind of want to kite the melee to the range is one of your big things. Or if you can stun a range, I have, you know, Sigil of Misery, which will actually stun them, and they won't move until I attack them if I want them to stay there. Or I have Silence when they're casting, and silence them, they'll bring them in that way. So you want to group them up somehow. Either bring the range in or bring the melee to the range. One of the two. And then the other biggest mistake is I see tanks pull a taunt. There's only one time you pull a taunt, and that is on a boss. Other than on a boss, and it's you don't start with taunt, I will throw glaive, then taunt. And that's just to get double aggro so someone doesn't pull it right away. You don't want to pull with taunt. Pulling with taunt is terrible. You will lose aggro very quick, and then you have no taunt to get back. And you can only taunt one mob at a time. So you'll want to pull with any other ability. Every tank has another ability. Death Knights have Death and Decay. They can grip. Paladins have the shield. Monks have Keg Smash. Like, there's always a range to get them in to start the pack heading towards you. So that's the first thing. Never pull with taunt. Always pull with something else. And then if you lose aggro on a pack, then you have taunt to be able to do that. And I will show you, like, so if I'm going for these packs and I want to pull this pack, I'll throw glaive, make sure I have mitigation up, and I can leap over here. Now I could have flown in, and you can see if they're casting and I want them in, sigil, cast my sigil, and they'll all run in to the area. So make sure you have any mitigation up as well, because you don't want to run in with no mitigation and die instantly, especially on big pulls. And you can see the one bar I have. This is for the scale binder. That's part of the add-ons I have. That's Plater, and I'll get into Plater in a bit because it's very in-depth. Plater is very in-depth, but I always like to mark the big pack that needs kicked or stunned or something in blue. I do that for every dungeon. And you can see he's going to get fish stick off because I don't have two stuns for that. You can't kick it, and I don't have a second stun. Mine takes too long to get, but that is the big thing. So pulling and holding aggro, you want to cast your AoE abilities to get there and make sure you're doing damage on every pack. So once a pull starts, you know, there will be some things that can help. Rogues can help when they have tricks. Hunters can help with misdirect. So there are a bunch of things that will help you. And you can just say, hey, can you tricks on pull of packs, or at the start of dungeon, just type it in before you start. Can you misdirect on packs or misdirect on big packs? And that will help you also keep and get aggro. So that's a big thing. Always use an AoE ability to try and damage as many as you can. Start with a throw glaive or whatever your ability is. Druid start with a bunch of moonfires and then thrash. So it just depends on the tank you're playing, but start with that. And then if you lose aggro, you will have taunt left over. On bosses, like I said, you want to throw glaive and then taunt. You'll want to like Moonfire, then taunt. You'll want something to bring them towards you, some damaging ability on a boss, and then taunt them to try and secure that aggro. So that is the big thing. And maintaining threat on everything is just maintaining you're doing damage on everything. They've upped the threat level, so it's a little easier now. Before it used to be a lot harder on, say, like a Druid, because Druid does poor damage when you're outside of Incarn to keep threat. So watch out for that. Watch out for Warriors. Warriors rip threat all the time with Spear. So that is the one class that rips threat almost no matter what. So knowing that just is a little tidbit to help as well. Getting into some of the macros I use, and you will probably want. I use this one. This just changes. This is a one macro that changes for every covenant I change. It's very specific for Shadowlands, but it will change if I'm, using Elysian Decree, if I have Sinful Brands, if I have the Hunt. So I have one button and it just changes when I change my covenant. That's all that does. The other ones I have, you want a set focus. So you want to be able to set focus with a macro here, and when I set my focus, it actually changes it, puts a moon on them. So I'll let everyone know before that, say if we're going into a dungeon, hey, I want the rogue to only kick moon, and I know there's a big pack or something, I will always set focus for the rogue to kick, and then I will pick up the other kicks if they can't do it. And I do that with a kick macro just at focus. That's it. All it does is kick focus. So it's focus the target and then kick the focus. Otherwise, I can mark, and I will tell them, our kill target's always going to be green. So green's going to be kill target, rogue, focus, moon for kicks. That's it. I'll let them know, but when we start the dungeon, that's how it's going to be, because I have my marker set up. So every time I just want to mark a pack to kill, it'll be green. Very simple, very easy. You can use whatever. You can use Skull if you like, but everyone was using Skull, so I stopped using that. I use green myself. But two very simple macros, very great to use. Other ones that you will want, there's a world marker one, so I can put world markers on the ground. It's very great for, telling people where to go without telling people where to go for when you're in pugs. That one, this one's been around for years. There hasn't really changed at all because it's kind of only one you can use. It's the easiest way to use is in details. Details, auto run code. I'll put the code in the bottom, put it here under on initialization, and just click save. And the macro for this is very, very simple, very easy macro. It is a cast world marker mod and then all, and that's all it does. So it just, you can put up any one of the world markers, it cycles through them, and you're done. So you can just tell people where to go. Very easy to use, very quick. Like kind of the macros you want. On different classes will have different ones. My Druid has a mouse over Moonfire to get explosives and Moonfire stuff out of reach, which is very handy. Monk can have a mouse over Keg Smash if you want. You can have a mouse over Kick if you prefer a mouse over Kick over it on your action bar. Those are just things you can use instead as well, but that will come down to your class and how you like to play it. The add-ons and Weakauras I suggest. Definitely I suggest Plater or Nameplate one. As you saw before, I have all the dangerous packs in blue. The regular ones are in red, and when I lose aggro, they change color. So very easy to tell. Very simple nameplate add-on. I use Plater because Plater you can actually switch VO to NPC color and names. You can actually put whatever you want in here as blue, and blues are always the dangerous packs, so that's all I did. And, this is very in-depth, and you could do minutes and minutes and minutes and hours on Plater because it has a lot of things you can do. You can also import one if you want. You can go to profiles and import a profile if that's what you'd like to do. You can go to the Weakauras website, Wagio, I think it's called. I never pronounce it right. Wago.io, and you can actually select different Plater name plates from there. So there's a whole section for Plater you can check out under Wago.io. The other Weakauras I use, obviously I use one for my defensives because Demon Hunters are very reliant on their defensives. A great one to use. I made this with a buddy. As you can see, it has blood barrier, but I don't have an on-use trinket anymore. I could use it for grenade. I might switch it to grenade when I pop that in, but I'm not using an on-use one right now with my demon hunter, so I don't need it. It just sits there, but the rest you can see the cooldown, how much I have left of it. It's running. This is very helpful to know I have demon spikes up and I'm not going to have much left. If I want to pop meta, you can see the meta, and it will increase every time you use Fell Devastation to get meta too. So it just tracks the state I'm in. And you can use that for any class. Will have ones you can set up. I have one for the Death Knight, but it's like this tall because Death Knights have a ton of defense. It's crazy the amount they have, so it's huge. It looks the same, it's just very huge. Another Weakauras that I use, this one just gives me the ability, so if someone's casting something, I can consume magic. I use that for consume magic a lot, just letting me know that it's there. I use voodoo on a lot of my other characters like druids, because they also can heal as well. So the druid has voodoo. I use voodoo versus a mouse over because voodoo allows you to double up on your buttons. So I can use, say I'm using my Elysian Decree on E, I can use E to heal someone as well, as long as I'm moused over the voodoo. And I'll do a whole video on voodoo because it's very in depth. But that's why I use voodoo. It just allows me to double up on the buttons without having to do anything else. If you don't like voodoo, by all means, use what you like. You don't need to use voodoo. You don't really need, most tanks don't need it. It just comes in handy with the druid. Now, you also want to either get DBM or big wigs and little wigs. Really just depends on your preference. DBM will do all of it as well, but big wigs and little wigs will also be a great addition. So I have them both installed, and it just comes down to preference which one you use. I'm also using quartz, and the reason I'm using quartz is just for the bars. So it will have a bars that you can do. Sorry, here, over the top. So focus bar, target bar, the pet's just over here, and my player bar is above me. So that's the only reason I'm using quartz. It just lets me put bars in different spots. So I know if the bar is right by firing brands, that's my focus, coming back to the focus macro. And if it's the top, it's going to be my target by blood barrier. So that's strictly the only reason I use quartz, but it's a great little add-on too. Use Omni CD for the interrupts. It lets me see the track interrupts and major cooldowns, which is a great one. And you can track, you know, combustion on a mage. You can track big CDs, which is great. You can track spirits and stuff if you want on hunters. Just depending on what you like to track and what you want to track. You can track major defensives on your healer to see if they, you know, you can pull crazy because they have all their defensives. That's another one you can do. Knowing the route and knowing what you pull. Most people, if you're going with the routes, use add-ons. So MDT is a great add-on. MDT, you can plan your routes. You can use this tool. And the counterpart to MDT is Keystone Guru. So if you're using second monitor, you can have this up on a second monitor on Keystone Guru. So you can plan your route. If someone, you know, say you ended up ass pulling this. So you're going to do a new one because this is actually this is Dratnos's route season 4, and I'll show you where to download that. Very easy to get, but this is a great starting point for things. But you can see if you end up pulling this pack that you're going to be hugely over, and on Keystone Guru you could actually just start taking packs off at the end while you're playing. So you'll know that you can not. You'd have to take one of these 2 packs and going, oh, now I can be at 103% instead of being short. So that's just coming with knowing the dungeons and knowing the Mythic dungeon tool. So there's a great tool to plan routes, figure out stuff. There's different routes, like Lower Karazhan has endless possibilities for routes. There are some that are kind of set, like Grimrail's pretty much set. You just know you're going to take the majority of every pack in Grimrail. It's just the way the dungeon's set up. But Gambit's a fun one because I made some fun Gambit routes where you go right and then you go left, and depending on the Shrouded, you take different ones. Like this is a double Infiltrator pack, so I always take this. It was a great pull to make. But that comes with just playing around with this route, and I made some pretty funky Plaguefall routes that I was in groups with. So it's a great tool to have, very fun to use. Probably one of the best Weakauras you can get. And Other than the Weakauras for that, it comes down to just getting familiar with it. So the weekly routes Dratenos puts on Raider.io. Go to the top. It's at the news section. Just click the news button and click weekly routes, and you can just import the weekly routes to MDT. You can see I had a Dratenos one there because I was just seeing what they were using. It's a great route to start with. You can modify it however you like, but definitely a great place to start. And you just import the string and it will bring up the route for you. Pretty much, if you need anything else, you can always get it. There are different ones, but Weakauras, get an interface for your character so you can track defensives, I would suggest. And finishing that is pretty much all you need to start tanking. Just get in there, practice pulling mobs, practice keeping aggro, knowing that you need defensives up, knowing that you need to AoE damage, knowing what you can kick, and just setting focus, targets, and priorities. But the biggest thing will be staying alive and keeping aggro. That is your job as a tank. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. Like, share, subscribe. Be Flex, Firm but Fair Gaming. We'll see you in the next video.